What is up, wrestling fans? Richard Woodrow here. Welcome back to episode number 8 of Pro Wrestling Slam for October the 13th, 2020 for ProWrestlingSlam.net, putting the pro back in pro wrestling. I hope everyone's having an awesome morning so far, an awesome Tuesday morning. On today's episode, last week on episode 7, I talked about the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and I gave a little brief history on that. So for episode 8, I'm going to continue on the championship belt theme. And today I'm going to talk about what most wrestling fans consider the greatest professional wrestling championship belt of all time, and a big fan favorite for most wrestling fans, the Winged Eagle, or the WWF World Heavyweight Championship that was used from 1988 to 1998. So on today's episode, like I did last week with episode 7, I'll give a little brief history of the title in general. Then I'll give my thoughts about the title and what I thought of it. So let's get rolling here. All right. The Winged Eagle, or the WWF World Heavyweight title, first debuted on February 5th, 1988 at WWF's The Main Event at the Indianapolis Market Square Arena. Then champion Hulk Hogan was set to defend the title against Andre the Giant, which was a rematch from their iconic WrestleMania 3 match, where Hogan successfully defended the title. Now, the rematch was famed the twin referee match, whereby Hogan lost the title in controversial fashion when it was revealed that the assigned referee in the match wasn't Earl Hebner, but his twin brother Dave. So the ever infamous twin referee match that most wrestling fans, of a certain age, remember. I certainly remember that match. I was 10 years old at that time on February 5th, 1988, when the title debuted. And so Dave Hebner was hired by the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, to put the screws to Hulk Hogan. And Andre won the title and held the title for a total of 45 seconds before relinquishing the title to DiBiase. Then WWF President Jack Tunney declared the title vacant, and the tournament was held at WrestleMania 4, where Randy Macho Man Savage captured the title against Ted DiBiase in the final match of said tournament. So, the Winged Eagle, a phenomenal-looking championship belt, debuted February 5th, 1988. And I just remember, like I said, I was 10 years old when I saw this belt, and I thought it was the most beautiful title belt, I'd ever seen at that time. And mind you, when you're a 10-year-old, your standards really don't have to be that high when it comes to good-looking, professional wrestling titles. But, I just thought this was such a great-looking title, when it was around Hulk Hogan's waist. And, when I think of the Winged Eagle, I mean, Hulk Hogan is the first wrestler who comes to mind, obviously, because he was the champion when the title debuted. So after Hulk Hogan reclaimed the title at WrestleMania 5 on April 2nd, 1989, when the Mega Powers collided, the Winged Eagle was a central part of a memorable storyline between Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig, as most wrestling fans know, and Hogan. So on October 31st, 1989, during a Saturday night's main event episode, Mr. Perfect, along with the assistance of the Genius, who most wrestling fans know as Lanny Poffo, stole the title, ran off, and during an interview segment later on the show with Mean Gene Okerlund, Perfect smashed the title to bits and pieces with a hammer on national television. The shocking segment set up a series of title matches between Perfect and Hogan, in a series of house show matches. But unfortunately, Perfect didn't capture the title from Hogan during those house show matches and during that brief rivalry between the two. So I remember seeing that segment when I was a little kid. Also, 1989. I was 11 years old at the time, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. My dad and I were watching this, and Mr. Perfect just took that title belt, smashed it to pieces with a hammer. And at that time, I was a wrestling fan for probably 4 or 5 years around that time, and I'd never seen anything like that before. A wrestler just defacing a championship title like that, like the way Hennig did. So it was definitely a memorable moment for most professional wrestling fans. So some wrestling fans may not know this, but the original Smashed Eagle title belt was taken by disgraced WWF ring announcer Mel Phillips. who was accused of pedophilia in the early 1990s. Phillips held the title until 2007 when a belt collector purchased it, but then said belt collector sold it to another collector a while later. So the only reason why I'm mentioning Mel Phillips is because, I really don't want to talk about that guy and, the allegations against him. But the only reason why I'm mentioning him is because, according to the wrestling urban legend or the misconception that smashed Winged Eagle title that Mr. Perfect defaced on Saturday night's main event was used later on during the Attitude Era as the WWF Hardcore title. Most wrestling fans remember that moment when Vince McMahon awarded the Hardcore title to its very first recipient, Mick Foley, during the Attitude Era. But that's simply not the case. The original Smash title was purchased by some belt collectors, and unless somebody wants to, let me know where that original title is, it's, obviously it belongs to somebody now, and maybe it was passed on to another belt collector. But really don't know its whereabouts to this point. So if somebody wants to hit me up on Twitter or shoot me an email and give me some follow-up information on where that title is, that'd be great. So I'm going to take a brief commercial break, wrestling fans. We're going to hear from our friends over at Anchor.com. So I'll be back in approximately 30. All right, wrestling fans, I'm back. Welcome back to episode number 8 of Pro Wrestling Slam. For the past few minutes, I've been giving a brief history of the Winged Eagle, the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. So I'm just going to bash on with that. Okay. So just before the commercial break, I talked about where that original smashed Winged Eagle was. Like I said, it belonged to former WWF ring announcer Mel Phillips before it was sold to some private belt collectors. So the strap of the Winged Eagle, for most of its time in the WWF, was black, with the exception of other colors like white, blue, yellow, or purple, while the Ultimate Warrior was WWF champion in the early 1990s. And that was something that really wasn't done with, by and large, with WWF titles. Most of the straps around that time, they were black. And when Ultimate Warrior became a champion at WrestleMania 6, when he defeated Hulk Hogan in 1990, he then changed the belt strap colors to suit his persona. The bright colors of the Ultimate Warrior face paint and the armbands that he wore and his tights and his boots. Like I said, yellow. I remember yellow, blue, purple, white. And if anyone remembers other colors that the Warrior used for the strap, just hit me up on Twitter and let me know. So, getting back to the topic of Randy Savage, some wrestling fans may not know this, but when he captured the title at WrestleMania 4, he altered the belt and added extra snaps outside of the tooling box, which really didn't look that great. It looked kind of odd having extra, button snaps, outside, on the, outside very, end of the belt. And, Savage had a, sordid reputation for damaging and altering belts that he had in his possession. Most wrestling fans know that when he was WWF Intercontinental Champion, he used the wrong kind of polish on the title, Brazzo polish apparently, and it gave the title a dull, damaged look. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't that nice shiny gold that most championship belts are. It was very dull, and it really damaged the belt. So a second Winged Eagle title was made for him with a generic champion plate and Velcro snaps instead of metal snaps that were installed for a custom fit, for Savage's smaller waist. So like I said, most wrestling fans are very, very familiar with the Winged Eagle Championship belt, and along with the title itself, most wrestling fans are familiar with some of the WWF's biggest superstars of the 1990s held this title, including Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Yokozuna, Diesel, Kevin Nash, as most wrestling fans know, The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, and of course Hulk Hogan, who basically debuted the title, like I said, at the top of the show in 1988. The title was officially retired the day after WrestleMania 14, when then champion Steve Austin was presented with the revised Attitude Era Big Eagle Championship. So the Big Eagle Championship was somewhat similar to the Wind Eagle. It was bigger, it was rounder in the front, had a much larger eagle on the front. It was an overall bigger title belt, and that replaced the iconic Winged Eagle. So that's a brief history of the Winged Eagle WWF World Heavyweight Championship belt. And this is, for most wrestling fans, including myself, this is my absolute favorite championship title belt. I have it, a replica of it, upstairs in my back cave on one of my bookcases, and it was definitely the definitive title of the 1980s and 90s in the WWF. And obviously the most recognizable title because, you had guys like Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin. That was the title that, really defined the WWF in the 1990s, like during the New Generation and Attitude Era. Well, not so much the Attitude Era, because, well, maybe halfway through the Attitude Era, because when Stone Cold Steve Austin won the title, like I said, the Winged Eagle was retired. So about halfway through the Attitude Era, most wrestling fans remember the Winged Eagle championship title. And it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely the title I think of when I think of the WWF. And I got to say that, a lot of fans will probably say that their favorite Winged Eagle champion was Hulk Hogan or maybe Bret Hart. But my favorite was definitely Randy Macho Man Savage, because, his persona and his ring attire, kind of classed up the title, those fancy robes that he had and the sunglasses and the head, the bandanas and the headbands, the bright colored boots and tights. He really, in my opinion, I think he really classed up the Winged Eagle championship title belt. So a close second would definitely be Bret Hart, because, Bret Hart was a 5-time WWF World Heavyweight Champion, and during his tenure as, during his 5-time tenure with, as champion, he was synonymous with carrying that belt, with wearing that belt. He always wore it to the ring. So Bret Hart definitely comes a close second in terms of my favorite Winged Eagle championship title holder. So, well, that's going to do it for episode number 8 of Pro Wrestling Slam. I hope those of you that check out my episode, I hope you enjoyed it. So you can check out the official website of Pro Wrestling Slam at prowrestlingslam.net. We always have the latest news in professional wrestling. We have a slew of interviews, both print and audio. Our latest print interview is with former TNA Knockouts champion Taylor Wilde, and we have some awesome audio interviews with guys like Jim Cornette, Scotty Riggs, Conan, some of the biggest names in professional wrestling. So we have a very extensive interview and audio section there, so you can check out the website. You can follow us on Twitter at PW_slam. That's PW_slam. You can check out our official Facebook page at facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Slam. You can follow us on Instagram. It's instagram.com/Pro Wrestling Slam. Check out our official Pro Wrestling Tees t-shirt. That's prowrestlingtees.com/Pro Wrestling Slam. So if you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy the website, if you want to become a really supportive follower of Pro Wrestling Slam, you can pick up a t-shirt at our Pro Wrestling Tees store. So that's prowrestlingtees.com/Pro Wrestling Slam. You can check out our official YouTube channel. Just go to the YouTube search bar and type up Pro Wrestling Slam ! And that'll be one of the first things that comes up. And so I will be back next Tuesday with a brand new episode of Pro Wrestling Slam. Like I said in previous episodes, I'll have a new episode every single Tuesday. So check back next Tuesday as episode 9 will drop. So until then, wrestling fans, I hope you have an awesome day. Take it easy.